Hi, Danny. Welcome to the podcast.
I mate, you all right?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy life. Obviously, all the social medias, the business, and also your press at the moment.
No, I appreciate you asking me to come on and have a little chat. Obviously, yeah, the social media thing, the assault as we're calling it at the moment, seems to be going okay. I think it all stemmed from the podcast, to be fair. So the podcast seemed to be where everyone's zoning at the moment. And then obviously we had the article wrote about us last week as well in the Liverpool Business News, which was quite well received as well about our growth and the plans for the next 24 months. So yeah, things are picking up. The industry, we're getting busier. I think everyone's been holding out a little bit whilst April comes, but yeah, we're looking forward to what the rest of the year's got to offer. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I watched your podcast on my commute, I think maybe 2 weeks ago. Like, really interesting story. Obviously, I reached out to you then. So, yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for taking the time.
no worries.
So, yeah, the first thing I've been asking my guests is, how did you get into the industry and where are you from?
Okay, so originally I'm from London. I was born in Kent. My mum's a Scouser. My dad's from obviously down in London. They met when I was about one or two. Uh, so I grew up down in Kent. My mum and dad split up once I was a youngster. My mum moved back to Liverpool to be with their family. And obviously I come back with my sister. And then we just obviously joined a new school. And then I just seen it through then. But regarding the industry, I'll be honest with you, it wasn't something that I was planning. At the time, it was plumbing and electrical. That was where everyone seemed to be veering off to. Uh, Luckily or unluckily for me, I wasn't bright enough to, to be going. I think I've done a few. I think they call it the mock exams and stuff to go into local colleges and stuff. Um, a funny story was I think one of the lads I went to school with, we both went for the same test and I was kind of sharing answers and I got kind of caught and got removed from the test centre. He passed and went on to do really well. But I had no interest in engineering. It wasn't really something that like fabrication and welding wasn't something that I'd really even looked at. That there was this college in Knowsley in Liverpool that was doing like not apprenticeships, but it was like getting into apprenticeships. So it was a bit like a welding school type thing. You went there 3 or 4 days a week, got a free bus pass, and you got £50 for your troubles. And I thought it's not great. It's not what I really wanted to do, but with my mum breathing down me here to pay keep in the house, I didn't really have a choice to be fair. But I went there, done my little exam, and done that, and I passed, and I managed to get a place in there. And it was whilst I was in this college that I just took an interest in it. Really, I thought this is really good. I remember actually being quite scared of welding. I'd never done it before, and back then MIG wasn't really on the scene. It was mostly stick and gas welding. But stick welding kind of used to just throw me off. I used to like it, big sparks, and it looked, it with your mask on and your overalls. I thought, I look all right doing this. To be fair, uh, and that's how it started. Uh, I was there for a couple of months, and there was a fabrication shop over the road with an older guy called Tony, and he used to come over when he was busy and take a few lads and stuff. And then one day he popped in and seen the tutors and was like, got an opportunity for the lad to come in and give us a hand for a week or two and see what they're like. So I got asked, and I went over. Just before I went over, people were like, "You're not going over there, are you? I've heard these are an absolute nightmare." And I was like, "Well, I'm going to go over, and I've got nothing else to lose." And first thing I asked was, "Do I get a bit of extra money if I go over?" And they were like, "Yeah, you get a bit of extra money." And I was like, "Well, let's go for it. I've got nothing else to lose." It was a bit of change of scenery. It was literally over the road anyway. So I thought, worst case scenario, I'll just come back.
Yeah.
And it was there where I met this fella called Tony. He was an older gentleman, mid 50s, probably back end of 50s at the time. He had a fabrication workshop. And I remember the very first thing. He was such old school, but he just taught me so much. But I remember he had a set of gates, and there was a clapper plate, a clapper plate that stops the gates being shut, and it was still stick welding at the time. And he said, "What you welding like?" And I was like, "Well, what have you been doing it like a couple of weeks?" And he said, "Okay." And this was someone's job. and he said, weld that up, put two, I think it was like 50 mil box with a clapper plate on. He said, stitch weld both sides. And he walked away and just left me, and I'm in this workshop by myself.
Sink or swim, basically. Yeah.
Sink or swim. And I just thought, well, fuck it, he's asked me to do it. I'm not going to say no. So it was, remember the old welders with the big clunk on the top, and you have to lift the thing up and spin the dial?
Yeah, we had those in college. Yeah.
Yeah, they were brilliant welders, really good welders. So I'm playing around with the settings, sparking it up, making sure I got my settings all right. And I just put two stitch welds down, waited, and he come back out the office and he literally just looked over and said, "What do you think?" I said, "I don't know. What do you think?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll have another weld off you." And that was it. He never really got like any praise or anything. He was just really down to earth. And then I basically just got asked to stay. And the place really set me up. Like, I can never disregard how much he offered me. Silly stuff like the women in the offices used to make me breakfast every morning, beans on toast, have me in the offices. And he was open, and I mean open. Like, I remember 16, 17, and he was coming out, he showed me, how much steel cost, how much the job was, how you buy steel, show me. At that time, he was still hand drawn. I've still got a couple of his drawings knocking around because I used to have a real passion for it, and I used to keep all my old stuff. And he used to draw the drawings himself in his office and come out and then give them to me. And I just took a real interest to it, to be honest with you. And it just developed from that. And like I said, he went above and beyond for me, spent a lot of time with me, showing me the right ways to do things, from tacking up steel beams to straightening out bars, working out the centers for gates and railings, just all the basics that at the time you don't really understand how important they are. And that was it really, just snowballed. And then I was there for about 2.5 years. A funny story, I think I mentioned it on one of my podcasts, was the Newcastle trip. He phoned me up on like a Friday night and was like, "I'm coming to pick you up." Said, "You're not coming to pick me up. I'm on a date." I just bought a new Ben Sherman shirt, a new pair of loafers, mate. I'm out tonight. And he was like, "No, I'm on my way to get you." So I said to my mum, "This fella's crackers. Like, he didn't have any kids. I think he had a wife, but he kind of like just took me under his wing." And he come and got me, and we went to do a job in Carlisle, I think it was. And we drove up, and we'd done this shift. It was a mezzanine floor, and we had all the drawings, and there was me, him, and two lads that used to bring in to help us, like Steve Delaney and another lad. I can't remember his name. And he gave me the drawings, and he said, "Oh, I want you to go ahead, tell the forklift driver what beams go where. We'll come in behind you, stand all the columns up, start tying the beams in." So I thought, that's easy enough. This is great. And we done I think it was like a 26-hour shift. It was balmy. We worked right through the night. We had a couple of small breaks and stuff. I was tired, I'll be honest with you, as anyone would. And on the van on the way home, I had a bone to pick. I really thought that he took the piss out of me a little bit. I thought, he took an advantage of me. And he taught me a lesson there and then, which I'll never forget. And he said to me, "What's your problem?" And I said, "My problem is, you pulled me away from a date, which is bad enough. I'm not the best looking lad, so any dates at that time, I had to spike people's hands off." And then I said, "We've done this job, and you haven't even said like anything to me." I said, "And I think you're taking the piss." And he basically said to me, "So your problem is that we've worked together for 20 odd hours, and I haven't had to speak to you." And I went, "Yeah." And he looked at me and went, "Well, there's the compliment that you need." And I remember texting my mum, and I was like, "He's lost the plot, this fella." And I never understood it. And it was only years later I actually understood that. I think this was about a year and a bit into my apprenticeship, that what he'd done, he taught me how to go to a site and command, understand the drawings, lay things out, and make sure that the people behind. And I was basically running that little job. Well, it wasn't a little job at the time, it was quite big, but it clicked. But it never clicked at that time. It was years later, and I thought, "I know what you've done there." And I still have a smile on my face to this day, because just the way he taught me and the way that he spent time and then give me the confidence to have a go. And if I did mess up sometimes, there was there was consequences. I think, I remember once we were doing an angle job, and there was loads of angles with angles, 50
Yeah.
50 angle. I think they were like little canopies. And I cut all the angle wrong. I got my wages that week, and I was about £170 down. And at that time, I was on only about £250. And I went and seen him and said, "Where's my wages?" And he said, "Well, do you think that material's free?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He said, "Well, you've cost me that material. This is a lesson for you." Now, you wouldn't get away with that now,
Yeah, it's not quite
but
legal now, is it?
it's not. It's not. But do you know what it done? The next time we had that job, I made sure that I cut all the angles right
Yeah.
because I thought I'm not losing my money. So he just had really weird ways, old school ethics of teaching. And as the years went on, obviously I was only there for 2.5 years. You know, kind of got a big me boots, and I basically gave him an ultimatum over his brother joining the company, and I got a bit too big for my boots at that time. And yeah, I ended up losing my job two
There
and a
was a
half
lot of
years.
pressure for somebody so young as well, though, that he put on you.
It was, but I always had that in the back of my mind that if I did fail, like, what was he going to do? Like, really, like, you know, was he going to sack me? I think he, because I knew he had the confidence in me, it gave me the confidence a little bit to go, do you know what? He's asked me because he was a stickler for quality. And I thought, well, if he's willing to even offer me this opportunity, he must have some sort of confidence that I'm capable of doing it. So straight away, I had it built in me. I can actually do this. And then I just had to figure out the ways that he taught me to, you know, figure things out for myself. And it worked, to be honest with you. And then after that, obviously, I'd done contracting for a bit. And then I went to another company, another old guy, but I was only there about a year. I think it must have been about my 19th birthday. I basically got not given the business, but he basically said, "I'm wrapping up, I'm retiring. Do you want to just carry it on?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." But he basically told me all of his clients were old school. A lot of them were ending in the game. It was not the greatest work, gates, railings, steel doors, and a few other bits and bobs. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't life changing. But I give it a go. And then I noticed that the orders weren't coming, and then the lease was up on the building, which I knew about anyway. But it was my first like delve into, oh, this is mine. And then it was kind of like, let's get into how Tony taught me. And then I'd done that for I can't remember the exact time, about a year or something, or maybe a little bit longer. And then I just stopped. Then I just went contracting. No, so I'd done 2.5 years. I got my MVQ level 1 and 2, but I never managed to finish my level 3 because at that time you had to have a company to subsidise the remaining part of your apprenticeship.
Yeah,
And
because it's
obviously,
work site based, isn't it, or workshop
yeah.
based?
So yeah, used to do modules in college, and then they come out and assess you. But because the only part of the course was funded, the company had to pick up the remainder. And because obviously I left, well, I got sacked from the first place. The second place was already going under. Like, he was already wrapped up, so he weren't going to invest in me. So yeah, I just kind of never got round to doing it. But it never really stopped me, to be fair. Because I think our trade is really unique, where paperwork's great, and a lot of people are asking for it now. But you know, 15, 16 years ago, it was do or die. Can you do this job? And I used to work with some great fellas who were unbelievable, and they never had a ticket to the name. But I think as times are changing now, it's gone more the opposite way, which is a bit of a shame, really, because I know some of the guys that I worked with in the past who never had a ticket to the name, but they could do everything. And I think once all that tickets and cards and stuff come into, you know, and all the agencies started demanding trade certs and stuff, I think a lot of the old school people just kind of fluttered away and didn't really get involved in it. And I kind of fell into that a little bit. I was kind of with these people, but not. It was a tough time. Like, I found myself right in the middle. I was good at what I'd done, but I wasn't qualified, like fully qualified with my certificates and stuff. I was only up to level 2. So when I'd done the contracting bit, to to go with agencies. They were like, "Well, have you got your cert?" And I was like, "No, but you know, I've got references and stuff." And they were like, "Oh, you need cert." And I was like, so I found it quite difficult for that period of time to find work. And then I've done a bit of labour and a bit of roofing and cladding, just picked up at what I could, to be fair, until maybe a year or two later, I started getting back into the fabrication properly. A couple of places gave me opportunities, seeing that I was quite handy, reliable. And then I started building that reputation back up then.
Is that when you moved into the recruitment?
Yeah, so the recruitment was never planned. Obviously, I've been contracted for a couple of years. I work with a really cracking guy called Dave, who owns a company called DLG Fabrications. I work with him. It was a small business, just me, him, and another lad. And they're like businesses that I really just love working for, where being reliable and half decent to what you do is more appreciated because it's a family-run business, on one, bit of pride in what you do, and that's where I felt. But I'd left him, his work dried up, and I went to work with another engineering company based in Warrington, and I met this lad called Darren Rowlands, who was a welder fabricator, and we were on £11 an hour, something like that, 11.50, not on pulling up trees. But the person that we were working for really didn't have a way with people. It was very money orientated, very strict, and it wasn't a nice environment. And I just remember getting a phone call from Dave again saying, "Listen, I might be picking up this contract here at Anfield Stadium." He said, "Would you be interested in coming?" And I said, "Yeah, go on, I'll come back over." Now, I think he was offering me like 14 at the time, or 13, £14 an hour. And I said, "Well, do you need anyone else?" I said, "Because I've got a good lad here who's wanting to move." And he said, what do you think of him?" And I said, "He's the same as me, like reliable, good lad." I think our industry as well, you can be as great as you want, but I think you need to have that personality where you can mix with people, you can talk to people, and you can get on with people. I've worked with some great people, but they rub people up the wrong way and can cause issues and stuff.
Yeah.
Luckily with me, as you can probably tell by this podcast, I'm quite outgoing. I can have a laugh. I'm just one of the lads. Anyway, he did say to me, "Yeah, bring him over." Now, that was the time when I thought, bit of an opportunity, yeah. I said to Darren, "How about I give you £12.50 or £13 and that, or whatever it was." I can't remember the exact numbers. We're talking nearly 8 years ago now. But it made out that I'd earn like 50p to an hour off him. And he knew that. So I said to Dave, I said, "How about you pay me for me and him, and I'll pay him?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's brilliant for me." We started the job. And Darren was with me for about 3 months, and it worked. Dave was happy with them. We were getting a lot of work done. Quality was good, and everyone was going sound. And then one day on our dinner, Darren approached me and said, "I've been offered this opportunity to go to Belgium on this mechanical site." Now, a lot of people in our industry, welding and fabricating, swapped over to mechanical because of the money. The money was just so much better. Dirty welding and fabricating yards to all of a sudden working in a car factory or a car plant or aerospace, putting in conveyors and steelwork. The money was so much better. So he said to me, I think it was about £1,700 a week, digs paid, accommodation, and flights paid, 56 hours a week, but you got paid for like a bit more if you turned up and done half a day Saturday. And he was like, "But it's in Belgium." I said, "Oh, just go for it." And he said, "But I don't want to let you down." And I'll be honest with you, I was a bit like, that £1 an hour, 50 hours a week. That was me drink on a weekend. That was me
Your
first
beer
couple of
money for a
that was
Saturday, yeah.
that was me beer tokens paid for. So I was a bit like, damn, there's me beer money gone. But we went and seen Dave from DLG, and he said, "Listen, if he goes, just replace me with someone." So I did. I found another lad that I'd worked with who because I've been contracting, I knew a lot of people, and I was pretty straightforward. So people were like, "Anything comes up, give me a shout." And then when you're working on Anfield, it's like a prestigious job. Everyone's like, "I want to work on that job." And because I'm from Anfield, it was a bit like a win-win. So he went to Belgium. I replaced him. So then I'm back to making me money. And then Darren phoned me a couple of weeks into this job and was like, "Dan, you've got to come here. Like, it's a good job. The lads are sound. You're going to earn so much money. It could be a year's work." And I thought, okay. And the best thing about Dave was he was such a genuine guy that he'd never stop anyone like trying to, do better for themselves. He had a proper good heart. And I knew that if I went and had a chat with him, he'd ask me the same thing. "Make sure you replace yourself. Just make sure it doesn't affect my business." So that's what I've done. I left and replaced myself. So by this time, I'm earning £2 an hour. All of a sudden, I'm earning £100 a week. But then I'd moved to Belgium on this lucrative deal of like £1,700 a week. plus my little drink money back at home. And I thought, this is life. Like, it doesn't get any better than this. Like,
Drink money and a new Ben Sherman shirt every week. Oh, God.
yeah. Well, you know what it's like. Sometimes, like the pinnacle of like a young lad is working away, having that status that you're working in a foreign country. It just breeds like I must be doing well. Do you know what I mean? And it
Just
looks,
being away with the lads, as you said, few
yeah,
beers in the evenings is just, and it's just any change is good because it's
yeah,
somewhere you haven't been before, new working environment,
yeah. And for me, that's what it was. But for me, it was a bit like because I'd gone through the hard times of contracting and not really knowing how me career was going to turn out. I thought this is my big chance just for myself to like, never mind the agency. That was not even a thought at the time. I just thought I've got one or two lads. I'm happy. Let's look after myself here. You know, I've been through a bit of shit the last couple of years. And we went out there and I met a really top guy, a fella called Paul Moulton, who was the owner of a company called Conveyor Services. And this fella was genuine. And I mean an absolute diamond. He was an older gentleman. And I don't know why. I'm trying to get him on our podcast, but he's a very busy man. But I always want to know the reason why he even took a chance on me, to be honest with you, because at that time, Eminent wasn't really anything. I think I just had a logo at the time and, you know, a spreadsheet, and that was about it. Like I was just winging it. And we went out there and I had a little chat with him. And he said, listen, Darren said you're a good lad. You know a few people in the industry. We're struggling for labour here and I need a bit of manpower. Can you help me out? And me being me, I thought, well, never say no because there's always a way to figure it out. And I thought the business was that young at the time, like not even a business as such. I thought if I fail, what's the worst that can happen? And when he said to me, I need 12 to 15 men, I just remember sitting there just with a smile on my face, just thinking, wow, like this is it. Like this is the moment. This is what I've been trying to work to. And like here it is. You know, I can make good money. And then straight in my mind, I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, money, like I can earn this. And he was
adding
like,
all the figures up. Yeah.
yeah, and I was like, am I earning 1,700 quid a week now? And if I earn 300 quid a week off each man, Jesus, that would be so many grand. I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
not realizing what I was getting myself into, which was how are you going to finance it, dealing with people, working with people, and then paying their wages. I had to sit down with Paul and I had a chat with him and said, listen, I don't have this type of money to be, you know, fronting this job. And basically had a gentleman's conversation saying, if you screw me, yeah, I probably won't be leaving Belgium alive because I'm going to have 15 people who will do me
Yeah.
harm and I don't want to be putting myself in that situation. And he was like, no, come, like, you know, you're helping me, we'll help you and we'll do our best and you've got me word. And we had a gentleman's conversation and looked each other in the eye. And to be honest, one thing I'll say about that man was he was true to his word, like through and through, and actually bettered his word because within, so we sorted the logistics. I put the advert out and it was like really short notice. And I put this team together based of like people who had worked offshore and riggers. And I thought if you can do steel work, the job was that big that you could kind of pair people up with gangs because there was already a company established. So I thought, put two half good lads with him and a couple of good lads with him and blended type thing. We put this team together, and out of the 15 lads, I think 5 or 6 were really good lads that have still worked with Eminent to this day. Other people, not so much, but I still appreciate what they offered. They still done what they done. And it just worked. And then I remember the numbers coming in, and I remember working from my laptop and a pen drive, and I was putting the hours in. And I remember sitting there, I was sharing a room with one of the lads, one of the young lads that I took out with me, Joe Gore, his name was. He was the youngest lad that I'd ever went with. I remember his mum making a phone call to me and saying, if my Joey boy goes out, make sure you'll look after him. And I put him in my digs, you know. And his career's gone from strength to strength as well. You know, he's up there now. But I put this invoice in and it was like 30, 40 grand. And I remember just sitting on the edge of my bed at the time. Joe was waiting to go out, spraying his boots, all ready for the night out. And I remember just sitting there and it hit me and I just thought, shit, like this is real now. Like these lads are going to want their money very soon. No money had come in and I was a bit like, oh my, like I was panicking a little bit and I made a few comments to Darren and stuff that I'm really nervous about this. And I thought, you know what, let's not worry about it. I've still got, you know, a week or something left till the lads were being paid. And I remember going out And obviously my wages were going in the bank. And I remember going to the cash machine in a place called Zeventum in Brussels, because the job was basically on the airport for DHL. It was the largest distribution centre sorting office in Europe at the time. And I remember just going to the bank, ready to get me beer money out, and there was thousands of pounds in my account. And I just remember looking, and I'll be honest with you, I nearly broke down, and I thought, wow, like, I think there was about 18,000 pounds. So I phoned Paul and was like, Paul, there's money in my account here. And obviously I was on a cash machine, since I couldn't really see who put the money in. I had to get a statement, and I couldn't. And I said to him, where's this money come from? And he said, the way you've invoiced your first 2 weeks has landed on a payment. He said, so we've paid you because you're invoicing every week. Our payment runs every 2. So you've ended up with half your money off, like, already. He said, I've squeezed it in. And I just remember the relief. And I remember just thinking, this is gonna work. Like, this is actually gonna happen. And at that point, the money that I'd already saved up and the money with my own wages, I'd worked out that if he didn't pay the second half and all the lads worked all month with the 17,000 plus my wages, plus a bit of money that I'd had saved up, I could break even. So I knew then that the worst case scenario is I've had a month out with the lads in Belgium, but I could pay everyone, and I'm not gonna be getting kidnapped.
Yeah, that must have been a weight off your shoulders as well, because obviously it's
it
quite
was,
stressful, isn't it?
it was, and I don't think people knew at that time what was going through my mind, because it was an opportunity that was there, but it wasn't there. Like, it was just a dream. And to cut a long story short, that's when Eminent really becomes something. I thought, this is a business. And then obviously once the money started coming in, 30, 40, went up to like 50 grand a month, I was a bit like, whoa, now is a business. So now we have to get registered. I think I registered the company in January 2016, but it was actually 2015 when we actually started trading. We went limited in 2016, and we started going for it. And I just thought, this is it. And then obviously, from the original podcast, obviously the issues that I had afterwards, that job was the golden goose to me. It was like the pinnacle of eminence, and I'm going to take over. And, I was competing with some other companies, and I thought, wow, we're going to do it. It didn't work out the way I planned. I learned some valuable lessons, some harsh lessons very quickly about life and business. People being jealous, people not wanting you to succeed, working with people that you're paying. That's a dangerous situation, really dangerous. And I learned a lot. And then obviously after that job, obviously I don't know how much of the podcast that you watch, but we had that job in Germany, which didn't go to plan, which I thought was going to be another Belgium, was going to be this. I'd go in as myself. They knew who I was, because obviously there's lads on the Belgium shop that had moved over. I'd gone naively thinking, these are going to suck up Eminent. I'm going to be here. They're going to ask me for loads of lads. And it just didn't work out that way. As soon as I got there was comments being made. Why the fuck are you here? Who are you? Smart ass, big headed lads. At the time I was driving a nice car, and I remember getting all my tool bags out of this like 30, 40 grand Audi, and people were just.
Oh yeah.
But at that time, you don't see it. Now I do. But at that time, I just thought, what is going on here? And it just didn't work out for me. And I left the job. We had a few issues on a night out where I got stitched up. Lads were, backstabbing me. And I thought, I need to get out of here, because these aren't my friends. These aren't people who are genuinely happy to see me or succeed. They really want to do me some damage. And I left that job with my tail between my legs and a bit gutted, to be fair. I really thought, wow, mate, this is how it's going to be. And then after that, we had the Runcorn job with it was the same main client at a global company. Very clicky. People who were in there are very clicky. And then we went to another job in Runcorn, which was, I think it was like an acid pipeline. And they were stripping down all the acid pipelines, match marking it and shipping it out to India. And once again, I still had a couple of lads working for me. I couldn't use my phone on the plant, so my dinner times were literally on the phone. Like, I wouldn't eat. Like, I was my 10 o'clock break on my phone. And I can now see how that must have looked for the other people. I'd probably do the same now. I'm on a job. I want my break times to be my time. I don't want to be in
Yeah.
some young nipper talking about making money, doing this, doing that, thinking he's fucking Alan Sugar over there. Do you know what I mean? I just want to eat my pot noodle and just take my mind off work. And I understand that. At the time, I didn't. And that was another incident where I rubbed people up the wrong way. And I didn't have people who were trying, I didn't have people around me at the time who were by my side going, this is what you really need to be doing, Dan, because this is what you're actually doing. And you're upsetting people here. And people are going to start disliking you very quickly. I just thought it was a bit like, fuck them, they're jealous and stuff. It weren't. And I was genuinely rubbing people the wrong way. And I remember being pulled into the office and he said to me, listen, one of the fellas here has made a complaint about you. You're rubbing up the wrong way. Do me a favor, tone it down. You know, bit of please him a little bit. And I just, me being me, basically said, no.
Damn it. Yeah.
Nah, like, listen, I'm not here. And maybe that was my ego again. Maybe that was my ego. So, like, who are you? Like, who are you to, like, have it in for me when you don't know me personally? You haven't taken your time out to even have a chat to me. You've just taken a dislike to me based on what you've seen or what you've heard. And that job didn't end very well for me either. And I left that job.
A
And
lot
then
of that comes with experience as well, you know, as you get older and more experience, you understand kind of how to work, how to speak to people and how to sort of act around people because
it
as you said,
does.
break times, yeah, just
Yeah, and you know what? And this is a conversation when we're going into these blue book sites and these older fellas who are, you know, they're used to this life. They've been on the tours, you know, they're 60 odd years of age. They're set in the ways. Of, now I appreciate them. But at that time, I just thought, well, he's really got it in for me. And then it was a bit,
yeah.
it was like young buck versus old school. And there was a lot of clashes going on. And then obviously that job didn't end well. And then I think the podcast that I had with Angie Kenny, that was another moment where I just thought, my eminence is over because I went for a job interview. I thought, well, I can't, the agency wasn't supporting me well enough where I could stop working. So I still had to work and do the agency. And that was the hardest part of my career was working and trying to build a business. And that transition of when am I going to get to the point where I don't have to work anymore? And that was the hardest. I think anyone in business now, anyone setting up themselves, unless they got a load of money and a load of funding, there is that point of the crossover when you're going to have to make that decision, stop working. And I think it cripples people. And I think it puts a lot of people off taking business to the next stage. And that incident with Angie Kenny at Haywood and Jackson, where I went, and I really, I didn't learn my lesson. And I laugh about it now, but I didn't learn my lesson. The last two jobs were because I was trying to push the business. Stop it. Like, stop. Like, people don't want to, people aren't interested. Like, stop it. You need to do a job. That's it. And then I remember going for an interview and I thought the interview was going well. And we laugh about it now. And she said, oh, we're really struggling for labour. And I literally just done the same
Oh,
thing that
no.
I've done the last two. Oh, if you need a hand, like, you know, I've got this little bit, I try to play it down. I've got this little business. I know a few people. And she went, what do you mean? I said, I've got like this like thing called an agency. And she went, so you're a recruiter. And I went, no, I'm not a recruiter. I'm a lad on the tools, just trying to get by. And her face just turns. And the funny part of the story is I understand why now, because she'd been duped by someone who come in to her business and stripped her business of labour, and it nearly had a detrimental effect to her business and her livelihood, which, looking back on it now, she had every right to do what she'd done. But at that time, I left there and I just knew, I just thought, I fucked it again. Like, stop it. Stop doing what you're doing. And it was at that point, it was that meeting that changed it, where I had to make that decision. You cannot be the worker and you cannot be the recruiter. Make a decision right now. And fortunately, I made that decision to go full hog. You know, I looked at maybe getting the business as a. Oh, first of all, I wanted to see how I can compete with these businesses because people have seen the transition from recruitment to install to fabrication with our business, and every time has been the same method. What do I need to compete? Put the feelers out. Is it viable? And can we actually do it? And once them boxes are ticked, then I think it's a calculated risk. But by that time, I already kind of knew that there's some legs in it. And that's what I've done with the recruitment. I put the feelers out, started contacting a load of people. I had not many people know this, but when we first started out, a lot of the young lads that who I was friends with, I used to say, "Get me into your place, and I'll get you a drink." So if I was making £2, I'd give him £1, and they were like, "Oh," but what was happening was I had this database of about 20 lads that I really knew, and I'd only used them. So I was using the people that I knew to get me into places, but then was placing the other lads. And all of a sudden, the reputation was getting better. And it was a bit like this lad provides good lads. He knows these lads. I think there was a funny story of I went for a meeting once and you're like, well, how well do you really know these lads? And I made a joke and said, well, if Billy's on your books and Liverpool are playing in the Champions League, he won't be in the next day if they're at home. And he started laughing. And then about a week later, Liverpool played FC Porto, I think it was. And he never turned in. And the client phoned me and said, "Where's Billy?" And I said, "Told you, Liverpool were at home. The Champions League, he won't be in." And he went, "Dan, I thought you were messing." And I said, "No, that's how well I know these lads. I know them." And it was just from that, really. It just kind of grew and I started taking it a bit seriously. And at that time, I was working from my bedroom. And then it just carried on getting better and better. And then I thought of ways to separate myself from engine recruitment. I didn't like recruiters, and recruitment is a dirty word. People don't like recruitment. It had a real bad reputation. So I thought, well, what can I do to change that? Like, let's think about the things that people don't like. People don't like agencies because agencies scrape the battle for wages, go top heavy on the markup, try and find the cheapest lads. I'm not saying every agency, but they have targets and margins that they have to adhere to, profit and loss and stuff. They have targets. I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. Then I thought about payroll. People hate being charged to get their own wages.
Yeah, there's
Through
nothing where the £15 a week for the payroll
exactly.
company.
So then I
Frustrating,
so
yeah.
then I thought, okay, well, is there a way that I can do this by myself? And I thought, yeah. The way that I do this is I work if I can to produce extra money, but effectively I pay everyone really late on a Friday. By that time, everyone's money from the week before will be in. So all I've really got to do is calculate, can the labour from that week carry on? So a bit of a funny story. That's why we started paying everyone at 5:30, 6 o'clock on a Friday. But I was like, listen, but there's no payroll fees. You know, I was like, listen, you get paid late, but it's free. And they were like, okay, that's fine as long as I get paid.
Take that.
And that's what was happening. So I was using one to offset the other. And then the whole payment thing was I would only charge a relatively low fee, maybe £1 or £2 extra. But I would tell the clients that I was literally telling the clients what I'm paying my men. And I told the contractors what I was charging. And this was completely open. And people were like, "You're telling people what you're charging?" I was like, "Yeah." So I would go to a client and say, "Okay, I'm going to charge you £22 an hour and I'm going to pay Darren 20." They're like, "Okay, I don't really need to know that." I was like, "No, I'm letting you know because I want you to understand I'm not here to scrape the barrel. I'm paying them good money and they'll get good men." And then I was telling the contractor, "I'm going to give you £20 an hour and I'm charging £22. You know, I'm not fleecing you. And I'm not, you know, there was rumours going around that at one time I was charging £10, £12 an hour per man per hour. And it was just comical. And the truth was so far from it. It was just like I was literally making a couple of quid. But
Yeah, I think the issue is that everybody has such bad stories about recruitment, but then obviously I understand for every tradesman it has a bad story, a recruiter has a bad story, but
yeah,
it works both ways. I get that, but as you
yeah,
said, recruitment is kind of a dirty word in a lot of
yeah,
circles.
it is. And that's how we just model the business, complete openness, not getting charged for your payroll. And I'm a tradesman. Listen, and then the next stage was how do I protect the business? So it was like, okay, what do people really hate? What do I hate? What I hate is people telling me there's 2, 3 weeks work and there's 2 or 3 days. And that really used to piss me off, because not only that, I was flexible with my rate. So I would look at someone to go to me, I want a man for 3 weeks. And I'd go, oh, okay, well, if I charge him £3 an hour, he's not really going to say yeah. But if I charge him £1.50 for 3 weeks, I'll get me money on the longevity. So what was happening was I was giving people rates based on how long the contract was and the working hours, based on how much money I could potentially earn. But by doing that, reducing my rates and still earning the same amount of money, because if you're charging too much, you want to get rid of you straight away. But if you lower your rates a little bit, you'd normally get an extra week or two. So I was playing that game. But then what happened was companies kind of knew that, and then they were telling me it was 3 or 4 weeks, and then it was 2 weeks or a week. And then I thought, here's the reputation damage. So what I done was I set up in my contract, I had T's and C's and stuff, and I had made it explicitly clear that any company that was found to be lying to me about the length of contract, we refused to work with completely, or you'd be charged for that amount of time. People were like, you can't do that. And I was like, well, watch, I can and I will. And what happened then was contractors, I remember seeing statuses on Facebook, because LinkedIn wasn't really prominent at the time. They were like, this agency is really good. If like it's a day, it's a day. If it's 2 days, it's a day. And what we were doing was we were giving slightly higher rates to the lads. So I was like, listen, it's a day's work, but I'm going to give you £25 an hour. And they were like, yeah, that'll do me. That'll do. And then all of a sudden, the reputation started picking up that we were honest, we were truthful, and we looked after the contractors. And then the clients started appreciating that we were giving them good lads, because I was using lads that I knew. And it was a nice partnership, and it worked for about 2 or 3 years, until the company got to a stage then when I had to go and expand and get bigger and bigger and bigger. We still had the same values. We still refuse to work with companies that don't meet my pay expectations. So I know what a good lad is worth. I know what a good day's graft is worth. I've had people phoning me up saying, yeah, we're struggling for recruitment. I've got this. And I say, what type of wages looking at? And we're looking at paying you about £16.50. And I'm like, right, yeah, you can't afford Eminent. And they're like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, you can't afford our services, because I wouldn't disgrace myself at putting a job up for a qualified tradesman. By the time I take my cut out of it, it's going to be 13, 14 quid an hour. I said I wouldn't embarrass myself. And at that time, you know what Facebook is like? You just get blasted.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
and I'd be arguing with, Billy, Bob, and Ben, on a Friday night till the cows come home. And I just thought, my life ain't worth this. Like, if I'm going to set my stall out to be better than these companies and offer this service and say I'm better than them, well, this is how I'm going to have to do it. And that's what we've done. And it worked, to be honest with you. And it just it just picked up. It just picked up, to be fair. And I think people appreciated it. People seeing that I was a lad, paying good rates, trying to get people work. And I think it won people over a little bit that we were slightly different to your average recruiter.
yeah. So do you think your experience on the tools do you think that's what sets you apart from other agencies?
Yeah, well, there's a funny story which we mentioned in one of the podcasts, and this is a genuine story. We'd been asked to man up a mechanical shutdown, and it was a large job at the time. And I thought, I can't compete with these. It was like really weird. It was an interview phase, but for recruiters. So you had to go in and you had to do an interview and say why you should win this tender, because it was an ongoing contract. There's 4 shutdowns a year for 3 years, and it was lucrative. And I thought, well, I can't go in and say I'm Eminent, I turn over millions, because we never. And I couldn't go in and say we had experience of doing this type of work, because we never. So I remember just sitting there one night and I thought, how can I compete with this? And I thought, okay, what do I sell Eminent as? The Eminent is different. That's what we are. We're different. Why are we different? I'm a tradesman. I'm qualified and time saved in what I supply. I'm knowledgeable. That's where the name Eminent come from. If you Google it, it says knowledgeable, well respected. And that's where the name come from. I wanted people to go, we offer a knowledgeable service. So I played to them strengths, and I remember digging in my tool bag and I had a couple of nuts and bolts and a few of the bits and bobs. And I went to this meeting, and I knew that I'd only really got a seat at the table because of someone that I knew. And I thought, well, let's just play the game. Let's just see what happens. So I went in and I knew the fella wasn't really interested, and I told him about Eminent to meet Origins and how we've done this and how we've done that, and he didn't really seem too fussed on that. And I said, the difference between us is that you hear this, I'm an engineering recruitment specialist. I'm an engineering specialist. And I basically said to this fella, they're talking shite. They're not. They're a recruiter. That's what they are. And I'm an engineer. So I took a couple of nuts and bolts out and I laid them on his table and I said, anyone who claims to be a specialist, that's a 16 milli bolt, that'd be a 24 mil spanner, blah, 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 and this is that, and that's it, and that's a tapered washer. And I left all the stuff on the table and I said, ask anyone who comes in, just ask them what they are. Because if they claim to be a specialist and they understand what your needs are, they'll know that they'll know. Cut long story short, he phoned me up and he said, all right, I think we're going to go with Eminent on this. And I said, it worked, didn't it? And he said, yeah, he said, he didn't have a fucking clue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the amount of times I've had a recruiter ring me up and say, I'm looking for a welder. So I'll say, what protest you're looking for? Oh,
Yeah.
oh, MMA. And you'll say, is it what sort of industry? And they couldn't tell you anything about the industry. And that's not a recruiter's fault. They're
No.
probably just reading off a sheet, but they
Yeah.
wouldn't know about the industry if you haven't lived or been part of the industry.
That's it. So I just use that experience as my selling point. And every time I come to that argument, I always had my background to fall back on a little bit. Uh, and my background served me well a little bit because I think about a year and a half later, after all this was going on, and Eminent, all of a sudden, we were winning jobs on, cement factories, Jaguar Land Rover. I was in a Bentley Motors. And all of a sudden, I was thought, all right. And we lived on this, we kind of branded it. I wanted to be in people's faces. Like, I wanted it to be like, this is who we are. This is why we're different. And really went for it. And it kind of just set me out. But then the opportunity come up for the installations part. And obviously, this is how we moved away from the recruitment and turned into like the group. Because we were doing the shutdowns and we were supplying 10, 15, 20 men and a project manager and stuff, I'd seen a market here and thought, I'd offered one client the opportunity to take it up. And I said, listen, instead of being charged on the hour every hour, let me charge you a little bit more, but let me take the whole project off you. Like, you're struggling for manpower, clearly. You've got more work than you can handle. Let me man up the site. I'll go and invest in a couple of grand's worth of tools. I can do the rams. I can do this. I can do that. All my lads are ticketed. Let me put a fixed price in and I'll take the job. So we went from earning like charging £23 an hour and I went up to like 27, 28. Spent a couple of grand on tools. And I thought, I know in my heart that I can do this. I know the lads. But they just assumed that they were still on the agency. So they didn't know any difference. So then we brought in the installs and everything was fixed price. So it was like, all right, I'll give you 20 grand for that install. And I'd say to the lads, boys, this install, and I'd knock a few days off. I'd say, listen, like, this install's got to be done in 18 days. And they're like, yeah, sound. And then everyone knew what they had to do. We put 12-hour shifts on, and all of a sudden these installs were coming in on budget, on time. And it was like, Jesus Christ, like, this is working now. Like, this is another part of the business that is more lucrative, more risk, but it's more lucrative if we get it right. So it was a case of, how do we churn that out? And then we started doing it more and more. And then that really kick-started the install company then. And then it went full circle and we started doing the architectural stuff, like the balustrades, the walkways and the car plants and stuff. And it just, Jesus Christ, like this is getting better now. Like, I remember just seeing the figures in the year by year, and every year was just an increase and increase and increase. And then it got to the point where the fabrication was another one where I was losing money. I'm not losing it, but I was losing revenue or the opportunity because people were like, okay, you're doing the labor, you're doing the install. Our fabrication shop's at capacity. Can you find someone to do this? No, by that time, I must have a real good database of clients and contractors. So I was phoning the clients who I was dealing with and was like, bit of a sweetener, really. Listen, the job you give me, well, I'm going to say thanks. And I've got an opportunity for you here. Do you want to do this 10, 15 ton job? And do you want to make this? And do you want to make that? And we'll fit it. Yes, brilliant. And then we done that for about 18 months. And then at that time, we really grew. And I was in with a consultancy company and I had people placing work up and stuff. And somebody worked out that we'd actually give away about 250, maybe pushing £300,000 worth of fabrication work to other companies. And I didn't make anything on it. Like it wasn't money or anything. It was basically the way I was selling it was, let me get you a company to do, because I didn't want to lose the install. So I thought, well, if I can guarantee one of my clients to fabricate it, I've guaranteed me the job, because if you do a favor for someone, chances are that they're going to feel guilty giving you someone else the work. So I used that emotional aspect of it. It was like, okay, I'll install it. I'll get someone to fit it make it for you. And you're going to have to give me this job because I've helped you out. And that's what we've done. And then it come to that point then where someone said to me, you're going to thought about a fab shop. And I'd never thought about it. And I was like, for fuck's sake, when's it going to stop? Like it just kept snowballing. And then that's when the fabrication shop become viable then. And I'd done the same with the fab shop that I'd done with the recruitment. I put the words out and spoke to a few clients, and they were like, Dan, if you do it, listen, we work with you. We know what you like. You know, you're a good lad. You're honest. You know, you wear your heart on your sleeve, and I know that you give a shit about what you're doing. We'll give you a go. Like, you know, and that's what we've done. And we started subbing fab work then from different fabrication companies when they were at full capacity. And we still do it now. Like, these are companies that have been using me since 2015. And now all of a sudden we're banging out 20, 30 ton a week for them. And we've always had that relationship now. And this is where the group now has got its reputation. And we haven't lost the core values of where we started, of we're here to help people. Like, you want recruitment, we'll help you. Fine. Like, don't worry about your clients on site. Like, I've been approached by the main clients and we've never done it. Like, I've never shit on one of my clients to go for the big bull type thing. I've never done it. And I think companies respect that and go, do you know what? I can send him to one of my clients. He'll do the full job. And I know that my job is safe if he's doing it, because he'll never cross that line. And that's basically where we are. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why the company is doing so well. I think in the last 3 years, we've doubled our turnover in the last 3 years. I think we're up to 3.5, 4 million turnover now.
So where do you think you get the drive from? Because every time you keep saying, well, we've fallen into this, we've fallen into that, but it's obviously come from somewhere, you know, that's come from you pushing the business. Things don't happen unless you push them.
No, I think it's pride. I'll be honest with you. You know, my background is not, I wasn't handed anything. And I think once you grow something into something, if you start off with this little pea and all of a sudden you start seeing it doing well and flourishing, or a seed, let's call it, and it goes into a little flower and then it starts to blossom. I think anyone who really cares takes pride in it, and it becomes something that you're really proud of. Like, and that's where I am with it. It's something that I never really sat down and thought this is where it's going to go. But it's just the way that we take these little steps, and we just take it week by week, year by year, month by month, or whatever, and we just let it grow and we keep getting bigger. It's come to that point where I'm really proud of the business, and I'm proud of, maybe don't give myself enough credit. People might think I'm a bit up my own arse and stuff, but I'm actually not. I do have these moments where it takes me back a little bit. Like, I do put a lot on social media, thanking everyone from I think even at the Christmas party, we put this Christmas party on. We got 5, DJs, I beat the DJs in, free bar. It cost us nearly about £12,000 for a Christmas party at our factory, turned our factory into an absolute rave. And I said to people, I don't care if you've worked for me for 1 day or 5 years, you're more than welcome, because my drive is my drive. But effectively, the hardest thing with recruitment is my reputation is only good as the people that I work with. And you're being naive to think any different. Like, the people that do what they do for me, right back to the girls in the office, Megan, our commercial director, she basically works 24/7. Sophie from accounts works 24/7, booking accommodation. Ian, the foreman, I can call on him. Adam, the driver, and it goes right back. But I think we have that bond because people see, and I'm so open and I'm emotional and I'm open about this is my life. Like, for 8 years, I've dedicated every single life, like every single moment of my life to this business that I treat it like a lottery ticket at the moment. Like, and I know it sounds really weird, but it's a bit like Willy Wonka and Charlie and the chocolate factory. I've got this golden ticket, and it's the only thing that I can really say in my life that can change my life and my daughter's life. Like, and everyone's around me. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the only thing, and I think not to see the opportunity and to give it your all would be devastating. I think even at the Eminent stage, I thought even at Belgium, I knew that this little business could have the potential to change my business and change my life. And if that's not motivation, I don't know really what is. And if you don't wake up motivated every day to change your own life for the better, just call it a day. And that sounds really deep from me. Do you know what I mean? But I think the same as yourself. And I seen Jake as well, obviously, who you had on your podcast. I've never met him, but I've seen his story and stuff. And I think to wake up every day, try and improve yourself. I don't think it's about money at all. I think money's a byproduct of doing well. I think if you wake up every morning, you just care about the money side of things, you're not going to last long. I think if you try and wake up every morning, do your best, be honest, work hard, people around you will give you the opportunities, which in turn creates good reputation, which then increases into profits and stuff like that, you see. So I think it's just the snowball effect.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously for myself, I would say most of my 20s toward late 20s kind of spent most of the time partying, was never really too interested in where my
Oh,
career was going. But, I enjoyed welding. I thought I lived in a small village in Wales, never really needed anything more than what I had.
yeah,
And then I made a decision when traveling and kind of when I came back, everything just the world seemed so much bigger.
yeah.
And I was like, do you know what? I actually want to do something. And I've gone back and I've gone back into education now.
Yeah. Well,
But
I think that I'm going to ask you a question. There's probably been a time when everyone that we've had on our podcasts have had this moment where it's just, and I think it's when you get out of your late 20s. I think if you're in an industry with potential, because recruitment, engineering, construction has a lot of potential, and I think there's a lot of scope to move forward and progress. And I think once you get to that point where you've done your party, and I think you only need someone to give you that small opportunity to show yourself once you are in that position. And you look at people, I look at my apprentices and I know they look at me and go, Jesus Christ, like he was literally where we are. And I think
yeah,
it's a good place to be where you can look at other people and go, okay, I've done what I've done. I'm in this position now. I've got this small opportunity. If I work my ass off in 3 years, I'm going to be there. And I think it just clicks. And you can't really say when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. There's just a moment in your career when you have that click, and it just goes, this is it. This is time for me now to put gears in motion, work my ass off, sacrifice, and do things above and beyond. I think I mentioned on one of our other podcasts that the people that go above and beyond consistently will be rewarded. Like, you can't keep trying your best, sacrificing everything without success. And I'm a firm believer of any person. I call it the 5 year rule. And I think I mentioned it again with my daughter. I've got she's only 18 months, but when she gets to 13, 14, 15, 16, I think if you dedicate 5 years of your life to something, regardless of what it is, you will naturally be gifted, or you will be where you need to be with it. If you get what I say, do you know what I mean? Like 5 years your life dedicated to something will give you the capabilities to just change your life in any sector, I think.
yeah, definitely. I can obviously you spoke about sort of that moment or defining moment for me. Kind
Yeah.
of, I came home, obviously without going into too much detail, kind of I came home from Australia because of a family member was ill.
Yeah.
And kind of I just thought to myself, anything can happen and things change so quickly. One moment I was out in Sydney, living my life, enjoying myself, and the next thing
Yeah.
I was back at home and kind of just thought, do I really want to do this for the rest of my life? Because people had always said to me, "Oh, you're clever enough. You can get off the tools. You can do this." But I
Yeah.
was always just like, "Fuck that. I don't care. I'm happy. I'm
Yeah.
happy welding." And then kind of I was just like, you know what? I sat down, wrote myself a 5-year plan, and thought, hopefully in 5 years this is where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
Maybe I
Yeah.
won't be, but I'm going to do whatever I can to get there.
Yeah. Well, see, I remember just doing plans, and it's really funny. And mine only really based around like getting where I needed to be. Like I remember just being a contractor. I remember having £1,000. Every bank was like, "Wow, I'm doing well here." Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I save a bit of money out my wages, then all of a sudden I had £1,000 kitty, and I thought, "Oh." And then as the business grew, it was like, "Well, how about if I had £10,000?" And then it was like, okay. And then I started getting really like mindful of what was going on, and it was a bit like, oh, okay, this is okay. Let me try and get to 100,000. Let me see if I can have £100,000 in my bank at all time after I pay the wages. And then it just kind of, and then it was like, okay, well, what? How do I keep progressing and progressing? I think once you get on that wheel, I think it's, I think it's a great journey for anyone, and anyone who thinks it's an easy journey is fucking stupid. I'm very open. I've had mental health issues. 2018, I think it was. I nearly got sectioned. Uh, Doing too much, working, trying to run a business, using me downtime, not effectively going out drinking and partying with these people that I grew up with and stuff, and then not realizing, Dan, you're meant to be a businessman. Stop going out and drinking yourself to an oblivion. Uh, Life will catch up with you very quickly. The mental health side of things, and I think it's a good cycle to be on. And I think people just need to understand, obviously, the relationship side of things. I've lost 3 relationships because of my business, just the work ethic. My phone never turns off. I've been on holiday with partners, and I'm just on the phone around the pool for like an hour whilst my partner's, you know, dying of thirst. She's like, "Where's my pina colada?" And I'm just like, "Listen, just hang on 1 second. I've got a lad who hasn't turned up yet." And it just, I think dealing with disappointments and stuff, and lads not turning for jobs, and dealing with things when they don't go your right way was something I had to learn very quickly. And learning rejection. That's another thing in business that I am always saying. Anyone starting from business, you need to learn how to deal with rejection, because you're not going to win everything. You're not going to, some people will never, I've got people now who will never give me a job. They'll never give me an opportunity, but I see them on my socials. I see them liking this. I see them viewing that. I see them advertising for Labour every week. And I just know they're not going to use me. Did it used to affect me? Yeah, I used to take it really personally. And when lads didn't turn in for a job on a Monday after begging me for work and then not turning, that used to really emotionally hit me. Like, and I used to take it personally. And then I think learning all that type of stuff, it's been a mad journey, to be fair. And I love that. But this is probably the first time that I've ever really had this conversation in depth, where I can actually sit here and view like the whole 8 years from start to finish, and that it's the emotional journey that it's taken me on. It's quite dark. It's dark and scary, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, the thing is as well, especially men, like a lot of the time we don't talk about things. So I'm the same. I'll hold things in. I won't speak about it. I'll let it build
Yeah,
up, let it build up. Sometimes you just need somebody to speak to, or you need,
yeah,
because obviously mental health is such I've had my own issues and had,
yeah,
I think, well, everybody has their own story.
yeah,
You never know what somebody's going through.
yeah. And I think, I'm not going to go down this whole, I'm trying to get the right words here. I don't want to go down this whole route of, oh my God, let's do this all for mental health. Let's make this aware. I just need to get to the, I want people to get to the point where you can have this conversation. Like men can have this conversation. Like I've got good clients, and we can phone up and say, "How's your week?" Being shit. Like how's things? Like kids are not well. Missus is fucking doing me nothing. Work's getting to me, and I think just offload. Let's have these chats. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
stop. You know, this whole social media thing, that business. Oh my God, we're doing so well. Our business is this. My business is great, and we're winning this type of work. Let's look at the dark side of things and let's talk about it. So to win all these contracts, I'm assuming you've been in the office, 12, 14 hours a day. I see you've got kids. Let's talk about how hard it is, because stop promoting the good. Like, this is what really gets to me a little bit. Let's stop promoting the good so much, and let's have a look at the bad. Let's be open and let's talk about it and go, yeah, nearly got sections. I nearly lost my business. I was literally that close. If it wasn't for an ex-partner of mine opening the door in the hospital and letting me escape, I was going to a place called Clockview for a recommended 3-month stint, which I couldn't have left. That would have been my business over and done with. Let's talk about that. Let's be open. What caused it? Work, not dealing with things properly, taking too much on, letting emotions and things override sense. Like, is this lad turning in on a Monday? Is this going to ruin your business? No, it's an unfortunate act and it's going to upset me. But dealing with it and learning to deal with it, this is not going to ruin your business, because if you or ruin your mental state. Yeah, if he didn't turn in, fuck him. Let's find someone else. Let's move on. Talk to the client. Let's have a chat. Let's not turn your phone off and bury your head and let it ruin your week, because that's just not how you can run a business. And I think a lot of people need to interact a little bit more. And I also think companies need to appreciate. I've worked with clients and they don't appreciate this interaction. They treat the business like it's the end of the world. This lad hasn't turned in. I've got my fucking clients on my back. You've caused me this. This is the end. I'll never use it again. Mate, come on. Like, is it really that bad? I remember a story, and this is a genuine story. We had a job with a client once, and it was only about 2 or 3 years ago. And we were supplying labour in London, and the lads were travelling backwards and forwards, and he wouldn't pay the accommodation, so we were having lads travelling. The lads were finishing work on a Friday after doing a 10-hour shift, travelling back from London. On a Sunday, they were travelling down at, say, 3 o'clock in the morning and getting to site at 8 and 9. I get a phone call one day off this client, screaming and bawling down the phone that these lads have been taken off one of his sites. And I was like, what do you mean? Don't you do this? Don't you do that? You've taken men off this fucking site. You've done this. And I said, whoa, just hang a sec. I said, I've phoned the client. We've had a chat. We're not even ready for my labour, but I've had an accident. I said, lads off a different site have crashed on the motorway. And I've got a wagon that needs to be unloaded. And I've had to pinch the labour off that site just to go and sort this site. Well, no, it's not how you fucking do things, but and I just went, right, listen, shut up. There's more to life than business. It's not the end of the world, but what I'm dealing with here. And what had happened was the lads that were traveling to the other side had crashed their car on the motorway. One lad had fractured the skull and was in very critical condition, and another lad had broken his collarbone and was in safe condition. But what had happened was his missus was phoning me. So in this Monday morning, I've got the missus of one person who's potentially got life-threatening injuries down the phone screaming, how can you do this? This is your fault, blah, 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 blah. And then I've also got this client who's screaming about 2 men not being on site. And I'm trying to weigh up the two comparables. It's like, how can you justify what I've done to what I'm trying to deal with? And I basically said, stick your job up your ass. There's more to life than this business. And that was the very first time that I dealt with a situation better than letting it cave me in and thinking, oh my God, I've got 2 lads in hospital here. I've pulled labour off this site. He's never going to use me again. Oh my God, my reputation's gone. And that would have ruined my whole week. And that could have normally would put me in a downward spiral. The negative thoughts, and would really, it'd be a struggle for the rest of the week. It was just learning how to manage that and how to be a bit proactive and try and be a bit more positive. And what I was doing was the right thing. Do you know what I mean? and then telling clients, really, you look at the situation I'm in, look what I've had to do, how bad has that really affected you? And cut a long story short, the client come back to me not so long ago, and we had to sit down, and I actually just looked him in the eye and said I was being genuine. Like, I'm sorry for telling you to fuck off on the phone, but I had a man who's potentially going to die, who'd work for me, his partner calling me and stuff like that. So I think companies need to work with the correct companies. I think that pays a lot. And I think any young company needs to pick the companies wisely, because there's big powerhouse companies who just treat people like numbers, to be fair. They don't care. They just want manpower. They just want manpower on site. And I think any young man getting into business needs to realize that it's fine having this work and trying to grow your business, but you have to work with the right people, because the effects of working with the wrong companies for the sake of money or trying to progress your business is far more damaging than, not taking that job. You might think it's a big deal not taking that job and losing a bit of revenue, and oh my god, my business is not building as quick as it should. But the detrimental effect of working with a client who has no interest of you as a person, doesn't really care about you as a business, or what you're trying to achieve, or the hours that you're putting in, or the way that you're trying to approach things, I think is dangerous. And I think that's a good thing that people need to really take in and just think, is this company good? Does this person I'm dealing with on the phone know me, appreciate me? No, I've got 2 screaming kids at home. Does he know what I'm dealing with? Does he know that I've got to leave my kids on a Sunday at 4 a.m. to go and check on this site and look at what people are giving up every day to try and carve out a better life for themselves? Because effectively that's all they're trying to do, is just make a living. No one sets the stall out to be a Conor McGregor and go, oh my God, I'm going to change, I'm going to have a yacht. They literally just want a little bit of extra money and want appreciation for what they're doing. And that's, I think, an honest look at any young business. Any young business to me that goes, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that, and I'm going to do this. I just think, go away, mate, because you're living in cloud cuckoo lands. Like, life does not work like that. I used to go like a building a bloody, was it a castle out of playing cards? So you put a little one down, you watch it wobble, and you go, okay, we survived that, and you build another little level, and you keep going, and before you know it, you've got a little something. I think that's how people need to go for business. That's my tip anyway. Work for me.
Well, yeah,
People might,
look, you've certainly
well,
done well for yourself anyway.
I know. Well, people might be looking at me and just go, "You're talking over the shite," but I can only go on my experiences and how I've navigated the last 8 years of my life and business. And I'll always be honest to the way I navigated it. I'm not going to say this is how you should do it. I can just go on my experiences. That's the only thing I can go on. People's situations, family, businesses, and setups, and that's their own thing. I can only really talk about mine and try and give an insight into how we did it.
Okay, something I've been asking my guests. Can you tell me a funny story off the top of your head? Something that, whether it's workshop banter, whether it's something that happened.
Well, I've had this thing which is, it always gets brought up, and it's quite funny, to be fair. But I'm never regret saying this, but everyone always comments. So people always ask me about First Dates, the TV show. I'm assuming you watched it.
I've seen first dates before, yeah.
Have you ever seen my episode?
No, I haven't.
So this is just one of the weird facts about me that people started getting onto as my business started growing and stuff. Everyone was like, wasn't you on First Dates? And I was like, shit. So I kind of harnessed that a little bit into like a bit of a playful thing. So people who wanted to interact with me and stuff, I thought, I'm not a big businessman. I'm not this and that. I'm just Danny a little bit. Do you know what I mean? And I had lads who worked for me that were showing lads on site and going,
Oh, I could, yeah.
look at this idiot and stuff like that. So it's just something that always gets brought up, and it just comes out of the blue sometimes. I think the episode was shown again a couple of weeks back, and people were on my LinkedIn because our LinkedIn's quite prominent now. We've got,
Yeah.
I think, like 30,000 followers, and the way that we market ourselves and stuff is, and people were going, yeah, you think you're this and that now, like dead commercial. Yeah. But there was a scene on it when they did say to me, like, what do you do for a living? And I was like, oh, I'm an engineer. And they were like, what type of engineer? I was like, I'm a welder. And they went, any chance you can bring the welding mask down? And I went, really? So, no, the intro bits where you do the intro.
Oh,
my intro is I'm stood there with a high vis on and a welding mask, and
oh,
I've flicked the welding mask up, and I just started laughing, and everyone who's seen it were like, "Go on, Dan, do us the pose." And I remember being on site
oh,
welding away and stuff, and they're like, "Go on, show us the pose," and I just took it as a bit of banter me, and
oh,
I got on the show from an absolute fluke. I was actually pissed up in a pub. My stepmom and my dad had applied for me, and I thought, oh, this is just a wind up. And I remember just being in a pub pissed. And I got the phone call, and I thought it was one of the lads winding up. So I'm, you know, smashed, and I'm flirting with this person down the phone. I was like, yeah, I'm game. They're like, what's your favourite girl? I was like, I want Michelle Keegan
oh.
with Holly Willoughby's personality and all that. And they were like, you're quite outgoing. Like, you could be quite good for the show. And I'm like, yeah. And then about a week later, they phoned me back, and I was in the same pub again. I thought, someone in here is winding me up. And I
Yeah,
remember they said, can you go home? Can you stand behind a white wall, and can you do like a quick 30 minutes, and a bit like what we're doing, a bit of a conversation? I
yeah.
thought, whatever. So I went in the pub toilets, the other white wall, and I went, yeah, I'm at home. And they were asking me more and more questions. And then they were like, yeah. And I just thought it was a wind up. And I just carried on the way I am now, chatting away, having a bit of a flirt with the girl, and thought it was a wind up. And then about 2 days later, I got an email. Congratulations, we found you the date. You're on the show.
Do you know what episode or what series it was? I'll have a look for that.
Series 9, episode 9.
Okay, well, if I find it, I'll put it in the bio underneath for it.
No, but it's if you go on Channel 4 on
On
demand,
demand.
season 9, episode 9, you'll see it. Yeah, I'm towards the end because obviously they kept the best to last, obviously.
Yeah, of course, definitely. But
But
yeah, brilliant. But yeah, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day. Obviously, it's been great to chat with you, and obviously it's refreshing to see somebody who's been on the tools move on to having his own business. And I think as long as you keep the personal touch and remember where you came from, then
yeah.
that's only going to be a good thing.
No, I appreciate it, and obviously, I hope people, the whole reason I do this, and the podcast and stuff, is I really do want people who are in the situation where they're in the tools is just have a go, just do it. Like,
Yeah.
it'd be the best thing in your life. Yeah, it might not work out, but give it a go, give it your all, and just see where it goes. And I think anyone who has it in them to deliver a good job and really take a bit of pride in what they do, I reckon they'll be all right.
Because I think sort of the name of my podcast sort of comes from the same place that yours does, because mine's
Yeah,
called The Game's Gone, because on
yeah.
Facebook, all people ever say is
The
game's
game's
gone,
gone.
get
Yeah,
out
it's on its
now.
ass. Yeah,
I'd rather stack shelves in Aldi. But look, there's so
no,
much more to this
no.
industry. And
Well, it's funny, we've got 2 apprentices in our place, Alicia and James, and they're just on it. Like, I love these kids, like, and
yeah,
I'm teaching them the way my fella taught me, and it's just like, I love it. Alicia's looking at me going, "Hey, Dan, like, I'm saying that, what do you want to do?" And she's like, "I'm not being funny, but want my own business." And I'm like, "Is it right? Like, yeah, let's do it." Like, these kids have been with us since April. They haven't missed a day. Like, and they're doing structural steel work now. They're tacking beams up. They're doing high end stuff. The quality of the work that they're producing. I'm just so happy, and I'm just thinking, this is why I do it. Like, it's
yeah,
gone full circle with me, and if anyone looks in and looks at me a little bit, and if they can just take one thing, just look at it and just go, look, if this gobshite over here can have a go, just if he can do it, so can I. Like, just have a go. Just please have a go. And if anyone ever needs anything, like, I get a lot of messages. If anyone needs a bit of advice or wants to chat or wants to have a little sit down or whatever, get in contact, because I want to see the next. I want to see it, because you are right. The industry is it's in a really hard place at the moment. I don't think there's enough people coming through. And I think there's going to be a time, which I think that time is now, where we need more people to take the risk and set up by themselves. And I also need them to take a risk on the younger generation. And I
Yeah,
think,
definitely. And if you can give back to the industry and you can take on apprentices, then you're doing your part. If you can
yeah,
keep doing that year on year, and if other companies, bigger companies, keep training
yeah,
people, keep putting people through apprenticeships, we will get there in the end. We will get enough skilled
yeah. And
trades
I
people.
think that goes from the big boys who are doing these massive shutdowns and stuff, who are taking on 30, 40 apprentices a year. That's great. Don't just do it for clout. Let's teach them the good stuff. Let's teach
Yeah,
them the real gritty. Let's not just have them on a grinder for 3 years, because in 3 years' time, or in 10 years' time, the industry is just going to be a full of load of young lads who don't know how to tack up a beam from high points, that who haven't got a clue how to fabricate correctly, or you know, they're going to just be on the grinder. Let's give these youngsters a bit of oomph, and let's give them a bit of pride. The same that someone gave me an opportunity and went, do you know what? So what if you mess up? But let's have a go, because you're going to unearth more gems giving people goes than trying to save money on just keeping people on the grinder, because there's going to come a crunch point where the game is gone. And
yeah,
it's gone because there's going to be a big, massive void where there's just shite. And that is what I'm worried about. And I think it's going to come a point. We're not far off now. I'm trying to find lads now who have done the time, and I've looked at people's CVs and they've always come out of his time. Let's get him in, and it's bad. The skills
yeah.
just aren't. The skills aren't there, and it's worrying. And I'm just worried for the next 5 years. And if I can take on 2 apprentices and maybe take on another 2 next year, and let's get these little businesses, let's get them invested in getting the youngsters in. Let's give these youngsters the best trainers. Give them the one-on-one. Let's teach them at the heart. Because I reckon in the next so many years, the industry will benefit. It has to. There's no other way.
Yeah, look, exactly. If we can just reach as many people as we can, keep pushing
Yeah.
forward, then, as long as we're all doing our own, even if it's a small part, at least it's something, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, if it all goes tits up, me, you, and Jake can set up our own welding school. We call it the Welding School of Excellence, and we'll teach the kids properly how to set up a job, tack it up, weld it up. It's got to be done.
Yeah, look, thank you very much, Danny. It's been
No,
brilliant to speak to you. Top blow.
spot on.
And I
Thank you
wish
very
you all the
much.
best. All right.
You
Cheers,
too, mate.
mate.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Cheers, pal. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
For that.